Jenna. Well, let's jump in. Good morning. Happy Friday. It's May 6th. Welcome back to the CX community event for the month of May. It's part of our North American Customer Centricity Awards. It's good to see you back. And today we've got an awesome topic that we're going to walk through with our panelists that revolves around diversifying your VOC, your voice of the customer stack. So we know that you'll enjoy that and lots of feedback. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Marlon Hardy. I work for a company called Worldwide Technology as the Chief Digital Officer and have been in the practice of CX for just a little over 20 years. And so looking forward to sharing thoughts and ideas with you today. Our agenda is basically we're going to walk through an introduction, have some opening statements from our panelists, and then we'd like to encourage you to join in the discussion, ask questions as we go through our topic this morning. A little bit of housekeeping. While we're listening to the panelists, if you have a question, certainly come off mute or put it in the virtual window. But if you're not communicating with the open forum, then we'd ask you to stay on mute until we open up the floor. But enjoy the session, enjoy the discussion, and join in. Now I'd like to hand over to the Chief Operating Officer of Arquette Global, my friend, Mr. Rich Kennedy, to say a few words.
Thank you, Marlon, and good morning, everybody. Mark can't be here today, the CEO, so you've got me, unfortunately, but I have worn his shirt, so you've got a little bit of Mark today as well. So thanks very much for joining. This is about the North American Customer Centricity Awards. We're really grateful to have you all joining us and really grateful to bring all of this great CX knowledge to you. The registration deadline, if you have a great customer experience story, is on the 10th of June. We'd love for you to submit that, so that's great. Now that begs the question, how you got his shirt? Marcos, I'm not telling you that. We're really grateful today to be joined by Mary from Worthix, who are sponsoring the event and this series. So thank you very much to Worthix. They're doing great things in the VOC space. So you can check out worthix.com if you'd like to learn more. So I'll hand you back to Marlon and yeah, enjoy the session. And I'll be joining in the background as well.
Thanks so much, Rich. And again, we have an awesome topic, but what's even better than the topic that we're going to discuss is the panelists that are going to walk us through it. So let me hand you over to our guests to introduce themselves and then we'll jump in. Mary, you want to start?
Sure. Hey folks, I'm Mary Drummond. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Worthix, which is a VOC AI platform. I am also the host of Voices of CX podcast, which is an amazing podcast. A lot of people who are on here today have either been listeners for a while or have been guests themselves. So it's exciting to be here with people I know and respect so much. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. For those of you who are listening in, you're so lucky because you have Diane Magers, you have Nate Brown, who are brilliant. And I am so honored to be on this panel with them.
Thanks so much, Mary. Nate.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. And my name is Nate Brown. I'm a student of all things customer experience. I just love learning about this work that is so artistic and scientific at the same time. Right brain, left brain. I'll tell you a few things about me and let's see who can guess where I'm from. So I've got a mandolin back here. I love hot chicken. I'm a big fan of country music. Let's see what else. I've got chickens in my backyard, big rolling green hills. Anybody? Yeah, there we go.
Oh, there you go.
Dan nailed it. I'm
right
right here in Nashville. So good stuff. And so happy to be with you. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate on this panel. VOC is the entryway of all things great CX. So this is going to be very exciting.
You gave them too much. That was an easy.
Too much.
I mean, you could have just said like, I go to honky tonks, you know, I mean, come on.
Bachelorette capital of the world.
Bachelorette capital of the world.
Good point.
He saved the tractor though. So Nate, looking forward to your input too. Thanks so much for being here. And then fabulous Diane.
Hey, hi everybody. Diane Magers. I currently own a unique boutique consulting and advising people who are trying to build this practice or cutting a path, if you will, for experience management in our organizations. I've been in this space a long time, and I hate to date myself, but I remember the first VOC program that I put in place. We were doing mail surveys back then, getting the information, going through it manually and entering it. So I'm excited to share, again, the panel with two other brilliant people, as we've said, and talk a little bit about not only what's happening today, but what we should anticipate and expect and design for the future of what the voice of customer is going to be like. So welcome, everybody, and look forward to talking more about this specific special topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I told you there was a wealth of talent on this panel. So don't let them do all the talking. Remember, you can join in and ask questions or give comments, feedback in the virtual chat, or just come off mute and join in. So as we're talking about diversifying your voice of the customer stack, so many tools out there. Which one do you choose? Why do you need more than one? Let's get some opening statements. Mary, do you want to start? What's your perspective?
Well, I'm so biased, Marlon, but I do feel like there are so many amazing ways to speak to customers. And I'm not going to be the one here today to start poo-pooing on other metrics and other ways of listening to the customer out there. But one thing I do know for sure is that if you're putting all your eggs into a single basket, what you're going to end up with is a lot of blind spots. And those blind spots could be catastrophic to your business. So, one of my favorite examples is to talk about BlackBerry, that in 2009 was the most amazing, totally where it's at. Everyone had a BlackBerry. They had the highest customer satisfaction metrics on the market. And it was also the year that they were run out of the market by iPhone. So we do need to always keep in mind that a single lens approach may not capture the needs, the expectations of your customer. And in the market that we're living in, that's so fast paced and innovation is constantly being hurled at us from all sides, and we have unprecedented global events happening all the freaking time, we need to be able to keep track and stay on top of our customers' needs and expectations. And by diversifying your VOC stack, you can make sure you're doing that at all times.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mary. Diane, what do you think? What's your thoughts?
I think the time for one-way conversations is over. I hear a lot about VOC and everybody looking for data, which is really important to understand and ask questions. But what I feel is missing now is that it becomes what we want to know versus really having a conversation, a two-way street, understanding what they want to tell us versus what we want to ask. So I think there's going to be definitely a shift as customers have become more powerful in so many ways. I think we have to rethink what voice of customer means in its entirety. Because I see a lot of people who have great voice of customer programs, but they're not doing anything with it. So in addition to that conversation strategy, it's how are you really developing the right insights? And are you really listening rather than it being about tell us about how we're doing? It's really what are the needs? What are we doing well? How can we create more value for you? So I think we need to really rethink about it. So I'm going to be a little bit of a catalyst here for disrupting a little bit of what we're doing. So that's part of my role here is to really help us think beyond what we're doing today. So we'll talk about some of that as we get into the conversation.
I love it. I love it. The tool and the program. Do something with it. I love that. That's awesome. Nate, where are you going with this?
Well, goodness, I was given the opportunity to go first on this question, and I really wish I had taken that because the words have been stolen from my mouth. But in my preparation sticky note, I put two things. I mean, if we think about what a VOC program actually does, you're bringing integrity to the voice of the customer. You're trying to bring truth, illuminate the truth of what the customer is actually experiencing. That's the number one thing. The number two thing, which is also so important, you're connecting the people inside the business with the customer in a more intimate way. That's what the VOC program should be doing. So as Mary said so well, if we put all of our eggs in one basket, you're not shining enough truth on the reality of the customer. You're going to get that single thread view. And I remember working in a huge major enterprise organization where it was all based on one system and everybody's looking at one score and one system. And I remember finally asking the question, what the heck does that even mean? What have we done to improve the lives of our customers? And nobody could answer the question because we hadn't thought deep enough. We hadn't brought accountability to that system and that number to try and illuminate more truth about what the customer was actually facing.
Yeah, it's a problem that I think so many organizations struggle with right now, of not having that illumination factor. Nate, now what's interesting is we all talked about a program here, and as we kind of double click into this, I'm gonna let you guys kind of freestyle. The program seems to be one program to listen to the customer, but are we saying one program, multiple tools, or are we saying multiple programs? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great, we want to bring simplicity to this, right? But I mean, so you have to find a balance here, because if you centralize everything and you try to shove everything into one process, one system, one program, you're going to leave employees out. So we want to make sure two things. We can be where our customers are talking. We have to be able to listen effectively. So sometimes that requires us to diversify our programs a little bit so that we can be there and we can listen effectively. There's so many different types of customer feedback that happen now. If we want to absorb that well and illuminate that truth, it's going to require probably a couple programs. But then I always like to talk about, you might have a program focused on this type of feedback, as long as it's eventually being centralized and giving you that viewpoint, this kind of that master viewpoint, but held accountable by these smaller viewpoints, you're in a really good place, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Nate, an example of that might be product teams who are looking for product innovation and feedback right on the product, where you want them to have the flexibility to do that. But that has to be set in context of, it's great for you to go out and ask that, but if you haven't gone to your customer care team and ask, what are the things that you're hearing about the products, or you're going out and saying, what are the products doing in the market versus what competitors are doing, for example. So the ability to have those multiple lenses that Mary talked about, I think, is so important. So great product team, love that you're going out there and getting information, but we have to guide them to think differently and bigger about what they're doing, what they're gathering, and are you really looking at it from different perspectives, right? So are you helicoptering up? Are you bringing in, what do we already know that we don't need to go to anybody to ask? And if you're going to care and they're telling you, here's the opportunities the product has, and you're also asking the customer at the same time who just called into the care center to get information or went on chat with a problem, and you're asking them to give you innovative ideas about the product, it's like, you got to fix the basics first. So I think it's that view that we have to help the teams that are gathering that information, yes, come into one place. We have to help them think about what they're doing in the context of the customer's entire situation and their interactions with the brand. So that's what I see happening with voice of customer. Sometimes it's this, we're doing this one thing, but are we really understanding where we're having other conversations with the customer and how it fits?
I think that product example is brilliant. And I have seen, and it terrified me. I think what you're saying, Diane, is so critical, that we as CX professionals help to bring integrity to that part of the program, because I've seen so many product teams that hijack VOC and they taint it a little bit because they actually perpetuate their own existing bias for what they want the product to do. And then they just take whatever VOC is convenient to them and they use that as a leverage point to perpetuate their pre-existing agenda. So no, I mean, we're here to eliminate the truth of the customer, even if it's inconvenient, and we have to help them to do that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I can, Diane, I think that you are the best person to speak about the architecture, let's say, of, setting up these VOC programs, setting up these platforms along the customer journey and knowing which one fits best at each moment. What I think is dangerous is when you have a really intricate customer journey or a really large organization that's in multiple market with a super diverse portfolio of products, and you're using a single metric to try to understand every single step of the journey. So sometimes in a transactional survey, you'll have a question about recommendation. How does that even work? So I think that what really needs to be done is companies need to bring in someone that's got this bird's eye view, that understands the full scope of the journey. Like you, Diane, I am singing your praises because I do know how amazing you are at this. But and understanding that, hey, customer satisfaction is great for a conformity check in a transactional situation. If you want to make sure that your store is clean, or that people asked you if you wanted to donate money to a fund. But when it comes to understanding effort, when it comes to understanding decisions, behavior, expectations, needs, all of these other things that are so crucial to the part of the customer journey where the customer is exchanging currency for value, that's when you need to tap in and say, hey, perhaps we need to look at this from a different angle. Perhaps we need to provide customers with an opportunity to tell us what matters to them. Because it's so very easy for us to bias things, like you said, Nate, with the product folk that insert so much of their bias into surveys. Of course they do. That's what we all do as humans. We're programmed to do this. The basis of scientific research and the methodology behind it is start with a hypothesis and look to prove it. And you're beginning with bias right there, because you're going to sort through all of those responses and all of that feedback, looking to prove your hypothesis. So perhaps taking a different angle depending on the moment of the customer journey, and being willing to use different metrics, different platforms, different technology, and being open to using technology to take advantage of that raw voice of customer feedback that is so abundant and so special. When I tell, Nate knows this because I say this all the time, when customers give you feedback, it's such a gift. How are you taking advantage of that gift? How are you showing gratitude to that gift that customers are giving you, their feedback?
It's interesting that you say that, because we were having this heated conversation yesterday about when we think about asking for feedback from our customers, or listening, or having a conversation, or building a community, or a customer advisory board, whatever it is, it's a touch point. Okay. Why wouldn't we design it the same way we design every other touch point? And I think we get a little nose blind to it and saying, we need to go get our metrics and score and get that information in and chew on it and go do things. When in fact, the customers, if you call them back up after the survey, they say, I filled out your survey and I gave you this open context. One, I never heard back from you. Two, you didn't ask about what was relative to me. This was a blanket statement that I get it. You need to fill your needs, but we need to think about the fact that those surveys are going to go away. I don't know about the rest of you, but I get so tired of filling out surveys, because I've only had in my entire career 2 companies ever respond to me, ever. And think about it like a marriage, right? If you have a one-way conversation in your marriage, it's not going to last very long. And that's why I'm so adamant about, we need to create this conversation strategy instead of this voice of customer metrics strategy that we've had for so long. It's not going to last. My 21-year-old has never filled out a survey, nor will she ever fill out a survey. So how are we going to start listening differently to what's happening and what they need and want? We've got to be, to your point, in the moment with them in the channels, and converse with them the way that they want us to. We're completely devoid of really understanding what we're designing and how we're treating customers in our voice of customer.
So I love that perspective. Let me kind of pivot us to technology for a second. To that point, Diane, are there technologies out there that can help us listen, and as we listen, help us understand what feedback we're getting, digest it, and make it actionable? Are there technologies that are top of mind for you, to the panel?
I'm going to let you guys answer. I'm super biased. I'm going to say worth it. So yeah.
Let me start down here. So Brad Cleveland gave me this brilliant talk about technology. There's a restaurant using 3x5 note cards for their entire VOC system. And what they do is, as the servers go throughout their day and they hear feedback about different new menu items and different things about the guest environment inside the restaurant, they just quickly jot that down on a 3x5 note card. At the end of the day, they do a 15-minute VOC huddle and they talk about the things they learned and they make improvements for the next day. That's a brilliant voice of customer system right there. So the technology is critical, but we overcomplicate this so much with the technology. It's not about the technology. It's about your ability to absorb customer feedback in a meaningful way and connect your people to it so that you can learn and get better. So start with that methodology in mind, then use the technology well to amplify and enhance your ability to take more feedback in and close the loop better and connect more employees with it. That's what the technology should do. But a lot of times the technology actually creates a gate, a knowledge silo, and cuts people out of the VOC process. And that's distinctly wrong when that happens. So, I mean, I love technology that's very inclusive, that brings people in and gives people the ability to centralize the VOC that they hear so quickly. At one point at a major enterprise company I work for, the way I did this, because people were not using our VOC tool. They weren't using it because they didn't think about it. It's another tool. There's 464 custom applications in the average enterprise company. That's way too many. So if you slap on another VOC tool, people are just going to be frustrated and burned out about that. But if you can find a way to make it really easy for them to be the voice of the customer, and so I just slapped a VOC or a little USB web key on everybody's desk. It literally flashes. And I just endowed them with this button and said, when you get meaningful customer feedback, I just need you to hit this button. And it took them immediately to this little quick unstructured form that gave them the ability to log that feedback right then and there. And we had great participation in that. So find ways to make technology unify people around VOC instead of separating people out of it.
That's great. That's great examples, Nate. I want to call out something that's here in the chat. And maybe Michelle, you want to elaborate on it, but you talk a lot about how companies buy tech, but their vision, the application of that tech is not clear because the vision is not clear. You want to elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I say this from being a buyer, being on the brand side as well as on the provider side. But so often I think as CX practitioners, we think that the tech provider is the expert in setting our company vision around CX. And we go in and we sort of just trust that whatever they recommend, whatever the next cool feature is going to work. We implement and then something's missing. It didn't connect. And I think I just love some advice that you all have around it. It all starts with the customer, right? It starts with the client understanding their organization. It starts with the client understanding their customers, what they're trying to accomplish, and designing that, and then bringing in the tech. And I think it's an important point, because I think that is what drives a lot of the myths in terms of why tech isn't, or VOC or feedback isn't really embedded in the operations and continuous improvement. So I just, y'all have many different perspectives on this, and I thought it might make for a good, just for you to share a little bit.
Diane, do you want to take this one, Diane?
Yeah, because I know you're biased, Mary, but you and I've had this conversation many times. I totally agree with you, Michelle. And one of the things that I learned really quickly, and I advise people when they ask me this, is they say, well, which platform should I go? What should I do? How should I evaluate these providers? And I said, well, what are you trying to do? And they kind of look at me like, well, we need a voice of customer program, so I'm going to get the tech and then it'll happen, right? Like magic. And I say, before you do anything, you need to define the capabilities you want to enable the organization with. Are you looking for video feedback? Who do you need to feed this information to? What are the business questions you're trying to answer, right? Get all that in line first. Design what you want the program to be and how you want it to function and what you're going to get out of it. Because you can go out and do a lot of things, but if it doesn't get used, to your point, you said it, Mary, don't do it. Like, if you're not going to use it, don't do it. So that whole, Michelle, they're spot on, the whole strategy first, get your program in place, because we find a lot of companies who put that in and say, we're just going to start getting feedback. Great, wonderful, but have a plan. I mean, it's ironic to me that we preach to our organizations, design, think about what your experience is, design it first, and then enable it with technology. We don't do that ourselves. It's kind of crazy. We're a little bit of hypocrites when it comes to drinking our own Kool-Aid or, dog food, whatever you want to say. So
Yeah.
I totally agree with you that have your capabilities and requirements and what you're going to do in your strategy first, and then provide that to your partner. I mean, there's so many great partners out there like the Medallions and the Qualtrics and you name, there's a lot of people who have great technology to enable it, but they're going to ask you the first thing they walk in the door is, what are you trying to do?
Well, and
So that we
Diane,
can-
I want to add on that, because so oftentimes the CX practitioner that's leading this, they don't even know where to start.
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
on a very tactical level, what would be the one or two things you would say, start here? Because I agree with everything you're saying, obviously. But what specific would you say, go do these things? Because I think that's where they get stuck. They don't know how, they hear you, but they don't know how to go do that.
Go get your business questions. Like, what's the business question you're trying to answer? Why do people leave us? Why don't they stay longer? Why don't they refer us? Go find those questions. Like literally that's in the first interviews I do with executives and the business, I'll do that. And I'll go to the care team and I'll say, what are we seeing happening? Right? What are we seeing there? And looking at that as a diagnostic of, you already have issues. You need to delve into those issues and figure out what the problems really are, because they're going to persist. And that's where your cost and revenue get impacted, obviously. So that's what I tell them to start is, find out what's going to be valuable to the organization, what they want to know, and then go get that information. If you want to provide value, that's going to be your biggest value. You can start with the basics of having, we need to get a baseline of effort and net promoter score, great and wonderful. But if you're not providing good information to the organization, you're not going to be long for the job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have something to add to that, like not even so much to what you were saying, Diane, because I think that's really, really valuable. But when Nate was talking about even small companies setting up systems that can be entirely manual to be able to collect voice of customer feedback. And while I think that's amazing, especially for smaller organizations that don't have this giant scale and hundreds of thousands of customers that they have to tap into, the one thing that I would encourage people to pay attention to is impact. I see so many organizations out there that base their entire customer experience strategy on the frequency of customer feedback. And while frequency is definitely a thermometer, that there's an area in your organization that needs to be addressed, there's a process that perhaps isn't working, there's a product that's perhaps faulty, how much impact is that piece of feedback causing to your business? How much is that experience breaking the customer experience and driving them to search for other solutions? How much is a lack of some experience? How much is that making your customers look for alternatives that provide solutions to their needs? So one thing that I would encourage, I know that every CX practitioner out there has to deal with budget restraints. You can't fix all of the problems at the same time. You have to pick and choose. You have to have an order of where you're going to invest first, what's most urgent, what's critical to the livelihood of your business. And knowing how to rank investments, that comes from impact. Because if I were to tell you that feedback A, which is number one on your list of frequency, customers are unhappy with this, but it's not making anybody lose you. And then feedback 7 or 8 is much less frequent, but every time it happens, customers churn. Where are you going to put your money? Where are you going to put your investment? So knowing where to invest properly, that comes from impact. And I have seen so many organizations that invest so much money in overhauling an experience that was never a deal breaker to begin with.
Yeah.
And then after all that investment, they're still losing customers. They're still, the churn is out of control. And they're like, but we invested so much. We did so much. And at the end of the day, they put all that investment and effort in the wrong thing, or maybe in something that simply wasn't crucial or didn't have enough impact on customers' decisions. So I would say that that's one very good use of technology out there that's able to provide decision makers with a rank of investments and on the true weight and impact of the feedback that the customer is giving is really, really important.
Yeah, that's a brilliant thing to be bringing up, Mary. I feel like I had an example of this last night. So I got this Oculus 2, which is really cool, by the way. But I'm sitting there looking at buying different games, and there was a game I was about to buy. But one of the comments, just one, was like, "Oh, great game, but there's this fatal error that happens here, and you can't advance through this level." And I'm sitting there like, surely the game studio has seen this comment and addressed it. And there was nothing. There was nothing there. There's no response, and so I just moved on to the next thing. Even
needle
though
in
that
the
comment was
haystack,
there,
Nate. Like, think about it. Needle in the haystack. Unless somebody's specifically looking for it or has a system in place that can detect the impact of that, there's no way for them to find it.
And yet, every single person that's about to buy that game, they're going to look at the reviews to make sure they're not about to waste $20. So, I mean, a lot of times our consumers are more intelligent about this than we are in our own organizations. So yeah, you've got to have that capability to be where your customers are, to listen well. And that does require a tool.
Yeah. I have a personal story, like a little anecdote, which is really ridiculous, but it does kind of prove the point. For those of you who have listened to my podcast or seen me or know me personally, you know that I'm a weightlifter, and I spend a lot of time in the gym, and I spend a lot of money on athleisure and clothes for sports. And I purchased a pair of leggings from a brand that I'm not going to mention, but it has to do with something that swims in the ocean. And I paid a pretty decent amount of money. And after a couple months using the product, one day when I put it through my legs like this, yes, this is my foot up on the screen. When I put it through, it tore all the way through. Now, the one thing that your gym clothes cannot do is tear.
Critical error.
I mean, it could have, faded. It could have gotten a little bit, I don't know, the fabric could have been damaged or something like that. But tear is, I mean, there's nothing worse. It's an absolute deal breaker. I actually recorded a video on Instagram. I threw a fit, and I recorded a video of myself showing the rip and then taking those leggings and throwing them in the trash can. Wow. Like, that's how angry I was, because this happened in the middle of the gym floor where it tore all the way up my leg. Like, how horrible is that? Now, my question is this brand ever going to know about that problem? Probably not, even though I tagged them and I threw a huge fit.
Unreal.
They're probably never going to know.
They're probably terrified of you, and they're all wondering what to do.
They have no idea what to do with you. And she lifts weights. So what happens when the program breaks down, to your point? Keith, Komet, I see your question, and maybe you can elaborate on it if that's okay. How many product teams are willing to kill their product instead of just forcing it forward? You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's kind of my experience in working on agile teams and things like that and it kind of speaks a little bit to what Diane was saying, right? Like, people are getting obsessed about the products they're creating, thinking it's for the customer. It's like, no, the customer really wants this. They're not really willing to take the feedback. And they also get obsessed with this idea that I've put so much time into this product, it's got to sell, it's got to move forward. And they're not willing to just go, oh, Agile actually says, maybe this isn't the product, maybe we need to shift or go back. And I'm amazed at how many companies are saying, in addition to how they're misusing VOC, as Diane and Nate and Mary have mentioned, but also how they're misusing Agile, the way to develop things. And so, like, you throw that combination in together, and it's that recipe for, I think Mary had eloquently put it, kind of like, or maybe it was Nate, who somebody had said, like, they're just kind of reinforcing their own silo. They're reinforcing their own belief that this is the right thing to do.
Bias, definitely bias. Yeah. A large company I worked for, telecom company, you guys can imagine. One of the things that the product teams, we had the business solutions at this company Lots of product teams are doing a lot of things. And we had one product team, we were trying to get design thinking in there to kind of get them to start, because they were being very incestuous about, hey, we have this idea for this product, let's go build it. And they build it and launch it and be like, why didn't anybody adopt it? And it's like, well, because you're not starting with what need are you trying to fulfill for the customer? Do you understand what the needs are and what value you're trying to create for the customer? That whole piece of value creation is completely missing, in my opinion, from our voice of customer. So once we started with the team where we went out and did that work and we really listened to the customer and they said, this is the gap, this is the need. If you fulfill this need for me, you're going to create value for me, and wonderful, you're going to save me time and effort and create all that. So we came back, we designed the product, we launched it, and guess what? Had better adoption. We were able to create value not only for the customer, but for the organization. And so sometimes it's a matter of demonstrating to the organization how you can work differently. And once we did that, the other product teams were like, hey, can we get some of that, fairy dust, that CX fairy dust? Because they started to recognize it. Yeah.
It's interesting though, because depending on the company culture. So I was at a company where we spent 6 weeks developing a pilot, something we wanted to test. Does it provide value? Does it not? But then it took me 2.5 months to tell senior leadership that we're killing it, because they wouldn't let us just end it because it wasn't working. But they're like, well, but wait, we had a team for this. And it's like, yeah, we know. When we're saying, let that team move on. But then instead of learning and saying, wow, that was actually a good learning experience, the company culture is like, oh, that was a failure. But like, it's still that they haven't accepted failure as a learning. And so it was interesting.
That's a great perspective. Great perspective.
I have this thing that lots of times when we have a project or a product or anything that fails, even when we did all of our research, even when we ticked off all of the boxes and customers seem excited and it solved the need, there is a huge factor as well, which is timing. Timing is so crucial, because sometimes even though it's a great product, it's not the right time. And, when you look at the adoption curve and you see the way that technology is, people actually implement them, sometimes it's a timing thing. So finding out not only if it's useful and it's solving a need, but understanding where customers' expectations are and how the market, how the ecosystem is affecting the expectations that customers have about needs. So, maybe if self-driving cars had come out 20 years ago, people would absolutely not be looking for even the basic features of self-driving, because the market simply wasn't ready for it, right? And so knowing how other organizations and other industries that are different from our own, how they impact our market. An easy example that everyone uses because it's so simple is Amazon Prime 2-day shipping. Once Amazon started doing 2-day shipping, customers in every single industry expected shorter delivery dates regardless, because in their mind, if Amazon can do it, then you can do it too. And this created a massive shift in expectations around shifting that the rest of the market really had to catch up and solve, because there was such a strong influence from an entirely different industry and an entirely different market on customers' expectations.
Spoils me, Mary. Like, I don't even want 2-day anymore. Like, I want it in the next 4 hours, or I don't want it. Right. Yeah,
really. Like, don't you have a hub somewhere? Jeez.
Exactly.
You're not going to get it into the town you mentioned before in Missouri, Marlon.
Exactly. Hey, so let me just thank the audience. So many great comments. Thank you for participating. Keep it coming. Marcos had a really good comment here amongst everybody else's as well, that we need to be able to learn or fail fast, learn from it, and move forward. And Marcos, you talk about an example that you had in your own contact centers. Could I ask you to share that or elaborate?
Yeah, sure. Can you see me?
Yeah, I see you and hear you. Welcome. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I was also at a large telecom company. Diane knows exactly what I'm talking about. I had contact centers where we were able to identify that customers were, through our data, through the information that we had that customers were overtaxing their actual internet access. And so we put a program together where we were doing outbound, where we're calling them and saying, hey, wanted to touch base with you, understand that the service that you're receiving might be, challenging or not up to, what you expected. We wanted to see if we could work with you, troubleshoot, and then maybe, offer you the next level. And what we found was that a great program, seems like the idea was spot on, but the way we implemented it was we were doing it to everyone with the data we had. And we found out that most folks were saying, yeah, I know it is slow, but I'm not willing to pay more. I don't want to go to the next level. And so they stayed as what we were formerly silent sufferers, but now known sufferers within their own, product. And so we had to shut that down because it was very expensive to have agents call people and go through that process. So we shut that down and analyzed what we had, and we felt that we had to be more targeted to the folks who would be open to it and that were capable of upgrading, and then give them a promotion to upgrade for a month. That's how we failed and miserably, but we learned. And so I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much.
Great example.
Appreciate that.
Love it.
Hey, Zach Bloom, I'm gonna refer up to you, kind of following up on that. You made a comment about the importance of responding to every piece of feedback. Would you mind sharing that and just kind of elaborating on your point of view?
Sure, yeah. So I'm the customer experience lead at Sweetwater Sound, where you're a music retail e-commerce platform. Yeah, big fan. Love Sweetwater. I was a customer here before I was working here. But we get between 3,000 and 5,000 surveys responded every week. I read every single one of those. Our team, they take the positive feedback, and every customer has an assigned sales engineer. That person is someone who's gone through 6 months of training. A lot of them have audio engineering degrees, music degrees. So they're smart people who know what they're talking about. When they get positive feedback, it's encouraged that every time they get that, they reach out to their customer. It is like they took the time to fill out a survey. We know we get about a 7% return on our surveys. So it's like, hey, if this person took the time to actually give you feedback, even if it was, hey, Dave's great, or if it's, hey, Dave helped me figure out this, and this, and he actually helped my business increase, we want them to thank them for that feedback. And it's an opportunity for them to ask for a referral. It's an opportunity for them to build brand loyalty, to build loyalty to themselves as a customer. It's an opportunity for them to invest in the relationship, say, hey, what kind of music are you working on right now? What projects do you have going on?
Amazing.
And then when there's negative feedback, we take that and I have a team of, there's about 10 people that we will actually dig in to not just what did the customer say, but what happened, what caused the negative experience. And we'll address that with feedback with the right people. We'll give it to managers so they can talk to their employees. Hey, this person missed this on an inspection for a guitar, and this guy got the guitar and there was a little bit of paint chipped off or whatever. We want to make sure that every piece of feedback gets to the right department so that we're continually growing. We use the word Kaizen around here a lot. It's a Japanese word that essentially just means continual improvement. So we take every single piece of feedback and we respond to it internally and publicly. We took the stance from Jay Bayer's Hug Your Haters book.
Nice.
Where, if there's public feedback, we respond to that too. So our team, like if you look at our Google, our Yelp reviews, Trustpilot, SiteJabber, you'll see my name on there, other people from my team. We respond to every single piece with a custom written. There's no snippets. Every single piece of feedback is responded to in a way that makes the customer feel heard, appreciated, and we do take their feedback very seriously. So it's been great to be able to give that feedback to different departments and see the positive impact it's had on our customers.
It's amazing. That is amazing.
I mean, that proves right there that surveys aren't dead. Bad surveys are dead. I mean, what you're doing, Zach, that's how you create true loyal customers and ambassadors through a VOC program. Incredible what you're doing. Well done.
Appreciate it, guys.
You know, an interesting thing from what you said, Zach, is it feels like the organization also has a really good way of giving feedback to employees when there's a problem and an issue. And I think that that's so crucial, because one thing that a lot of companies do is they create a lot of friction, where if there's negative feedback collected and then they come in with punishments and, you know, harsh criticism, and they make the employees feel like they failed in some way, as opposed to, like you said, the whole Kaizen continual improvement energy, then that will make employees hesitant or even not passionate about requesting feedback. So when there is a culture of taking feedback and applying it to an overall improvement, and not as a way to crack down on employees as if, you know, like a slave master with their whip, you know, that makes for such a beautiful overall culture where everyone wants to hear from the customer, because they know how much that'll help improvement, you know.
The words out of my mouth, Mary said it much better, but culture is what came to my mind. And that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Hey, by the way, between Nate, myself, and Mary, we're going to test you out, Zach, because we're microphone junkies.
Yes, let's do it.
Oh boy.
Challenge. Hey, can I go to Sashi? Sashi, you had an awesome idea about using cross-functional teams to talk to your customers. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I used to work for Network Solutions. Now it's folded into several companies, and I left it about 10 years ago. But we had a voice of customer using, at that time, the only thing available was Salesforce. We used to make sure everybody saw that every time. And then we saw like, look, we are missing out a lot of customer feedback because there are so many channels that people are talking to us in. And I used to manage their social at that time. So with the CEO, we decided that everybody, I think once a quarter, it would be like the C-level people who would actually visit a customer and just talk to them. There was no like formal. And then the amount of impact it had the company, because such senior leadership was actually talking to customers, I think brought back so many changes. I think one of the things about killing products, I mean, decisions could be made very quickly at that level. So it's not scalable. Obviously, you can't visit every customer that you have, but politicians know this very well. They know that if they shake hands with as many people as possible, it really impacts their results. And the same principle could be applied here.
I love that.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Diane.
Really important. No, I was just agreeing. I think the really making it human again, which I love, like the video feedback now, that is so powerful.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the things when you think about reading a comment doesn't bring that human element to it, but watching the video, watching somebody's, you know, facial expressions, understanding the emotion behind that. Like I can say a sentence that you could read, but the passion behind it, or the anger for Mary with her yoga pants, hearing that and understanding that, that's what motivates people. When those executives or anybody else has a conversation with a customer, it's important, because all that comes across. And that's why I always feel like in the care teams are just a wealth of information, because they can tell you exactly what's happening with customers in their time of need, and what more powerful voice could we potentially have, right? So it's not just looking at the calls coming in and the reason codes and all that. It's really listening to those folks who are in the trenches every day, listening to customers that can help us really build more information that we can go and touch them. So going to the executives, going to your care team, your sales team, right? Sales team is there for a job, but they're hearing a lot of those needs and expectations, and they're trying to fulfill them with products and services. But are we really using that information appropriately too? So I think we're missing, in the grand scheme of things, thinking about the surveys and voice of customer, it's the voice of the business as well. Yeah. Those people who deal with customers every day, who can share the wealth of information they have. That we need to pay attention to as well.
So fascinating thing happened on that, Diane. So the day that I rolled out these buttons and said, everybody put your customer feedback here, I actually had a sales rep immediately be like, where's my button?
Ooh.
because she had no channel for her own voice and the things that she was seeing. And because she was like, so you're telling me that only if a customer says it, I can put it in there. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, where's my button? And that was a huge wake up call for me, because you're exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you think about it.
Go ahead, Sash.
Back to Diane's point, I used to work in customer service. That's where I started in technology. And the reason I'm in marketing is this story. There are a lot of feedback from customers, and I didn't know how to send it to anyone. So I used to walk the corridors of the company trying to find the product managers. And the product managers were so happy to get this feedback directly that they kept having lunch with me like every couple of weeks. And ultimately, I actually moved to marketing. So just thought I'd share that too. Thanks, everyone.
Love that.
Yeah, Sasha, that's such a great opportunity. And I feel like when you think about the work that we do in the organization, we are creating bridges and connecting the dots. And you will go to a care team lead. Think about the lead, whoever owns your care function in your organization. And they will tell you that they have all of this information and they are kind of carrying it around, not knowing where to go. So part of our role is to help them find ways to bring that to the organization, and not, again, to point fingers or here comes the bad news bears, I call it, right? But how we help that information get to the right place is part of that program. To Michelle's point at the very beginning, what's your strategy for using the information that you're getting, and how are you enabling the organization to take all those pieces and parts, bring it back to the organization to the right place, and then help them facilitate to get to the right insights and the right problems to solve. That's what we've been talking about, is finding the right problem to solve on top of everything else.
That's the impact right there, Dan. That's the impact. Finding the right problem.
That's right.
There's an interesting comment to that point that is from, I'm going to mess this up. Is it Melquin Trenoska? I'm going to mess that up. But
no worries. You got it right. It's Melquin Troncoso.
Oh, all right. I was really close. So thank you for your comment and good morning. You talk a lot about the emphasis just being on scores, not on the sentiment. Can you share that with the audience?
Well, absolutely. Sorry, I'm not coming on camera at this time.
No worries.
Happy to be here. My name is Malcolm Troncoso. I've been in the BPO side of the house, supporting product teams, sales and marketing for over 20 years. I share a lot of the sentiment and feelings that you guys have brought to the table today. And in my experience, what I've seen when dealing with CX programs and VOC is that there's a lot of emphasis on scoring only, because that's what gives you the bragging rights. On NPS or CSAT, what are we standing? Are we getting those 5s? Are we getting those 9s and 10s? And a lot of the pressure we get on the QA side of the house and the customer care side of the house is to aim for the numbers, not the sentiment behind it. And I use the word sentiment because tech is part of how we measure that. We use voice AI, where I currently work at, enterprise I work at, to sort of measure what they're saying, not only what they're sending via surveys and emails or responses back, but really what they're saying on the calls. But at the end of the day, you have all of this information, including the true sentiment, how they felt with the product or service. But product and some executives only really care about the number. Like yada, 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 that's all good. Did we get a 9 or 10? And until we cannot change the status quo of that mentality, I just won't see VOC evolving unless we apply a lot of the best practices that we've seen here on this call. And I'm appreciative of being part of this audience today.
Thank you so
That's
much,
awesome.
Malcolm. Appreciate that.
I think that my fellow panelists will agree that the three of us are really on a mission to change this inside of organizations.
Yeah,
it's a personal passion of mine, is to try to help catalyze this change somehow.
Indeed.
agreed.
So with that, I'd like, we covered so much ground. It's not just about the tool. It's not just about the technology. You've heard that theme. You've heard diversify the program. It's not just about the metrics. I'd like to come back to my panelists and first thank the audience for all of the input and all of your stories. Just a great job all around. The community is growing and we're having an impact. Let me start with Nate, since he didn't get the first comment. Nate, do you have any final statements? How would you wrap up today?
Yeah, I mean, I love so many of the comments, not just from Mary and Diane, but from everybody on this call. And incredible job hosting, Marlon. Really, really great job bringing everybody into the conversation there. I mean, I'm just coming out just convicted and energized to continue to bring integrity to these VOC programs. Find where your customers are talking, absorb that information with as much truthfulness, that raw energy as you can possibly absorb it, and find the right ways with technology to amplify to bring that raw VOC feedback to the people inside your organization that need it. Become that vehicle for change. And I know you all are doing it, but I think the more effective we can be at that work right there, that's what opens up the door for everything CX. So great work and keep it up.
Thanks so much, Nate. Pleasure having you with us. Diane?
I think the theme that you've heard me talk about is we got to return to the human. We're treating, I think, voice of customer sometimes as the thing that comes in. It's a thing, right? What we're really talking about is human lives. We have experiences all the time with brands, each of us individually, and we have to remember how those experiences make us feel and what we do about them and how it really helps our lives and what we do every day. So I want to just remind people that when you're talking about the scores and the surveys, you're talking about people's lives. So let's return to human.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you, Diane. Appreciate you always. Mary, close us out.
I could not agree more with Diane and with Nate in this case. You both said such important things. If we consider that we're all human and looking at customer feedback as data, while it's important and I understand that it's sustainable, especially at really large organizations that need to scale everything, we can never forget the human element and being able to empathize and connect with our customers' needs, their expectations, their goals. That's what we're here for. We're all here. Companies are essentially a group of individuals working towards a common goal, and that common goal is always to provide the customers with a solution to their pains and their needs. And when we forget that, that's when it all just kind of goes to hell. So keeping that front and center and understanding that voice of customer is what we have. It's the channel that we have right now to listen. But we can't just be content with what's already in place, what we're familiar with, what we know how to use, because there are so many companies, there are so many individuals out there that are working on constantly improving the way that companies can talk to customers and have customers talk back. So keeping our eyes on the horizon, being open to innovation, being open to new solutions and new methodologies for how we approach, how we gather feedback, how we process that feedback, and then how in turn we turn that feedback into action is, I think, should be the backbone of customer centricity to any organization.
Well said. Well said. Well, with that, time goes fast when we're enjoying each other and having fun. Happy Friday. Thank you for being here in the forum. Look for following Arquette Global for the announcement of our session in June. And we look forward to having you back. Until then, have a great weekend. And thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank
See
you,
everybody.
folks. Great being here.
Everybody.
Bye.